All right. It is officially, what is it? It is officially time to start. I don't know what time it is where you are, but it's 11 a.m. here. So, time to get into the first art Mona workshop, but you've had workshops before. This one is on light maps, reflection probes, and light probes. So we're going to be looking at that today, mostly for the lighting challenge that is now running for the next, what's the date today? 17th, so we've got, what today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exactly 1 week from today is the deadline. So, jump in, ask some questions. If no questions, I'm just gonna make a space with light mapping. Let's begin, shall we? All right. I've got rid of the avatar. I have me for the first time ever. Maybe, kind of. We'll see how that goes. All right. Please tell me if my ugly mug is what you want to see, or you would prefer to see the little flamey avatar guy, because he's pretty cool as well. I'd like to sort of combine the two into a face avatar. So let's begin from the start, shall we? Now I actually have this, but instead I'm going to go to the resources channel and download the latest one to make sure it's the latest one. All right, so resources, build the documentation, template. Code. Downloads it. Save as. Let's put that on the desktop. Done, I think. Cool. Next up, we need to do builds. I have lots of builds. Done. And off to Unity. It is me. It was always me. Was it new? Space data, and yeah, select folder. That one. Now the challenge is mostly about all three lighting techniques, which is light maps and reflection probes and light probes. These are all pretty important to the competition because we want to promote learning them. So even if the reflection probes, for example, are ridiculously subtle, to be honest, the avatar uses reflection probes on the visor. So we know, for example. So we're going to be looking at things like that and how to use that in creative and interesting ways, or even just things that look great. It is Christmas. It is lights. So go for it. Yeah, let's go back to the build channel. There are so many channels now. Build challenges. There we go. There we go. All right. Now, I hate this layout. It comes up every single time. So I'm going to set these up the way I like it every single time. I'm sure that there's actually a layout save up here. So I'm going to try that again. I did do it once, but this time I'm going to try something new. So what we need we need the lighting window, which is in here. And I'll put that over there. If I have time, I'm going to use Bakery. So we're going to need the package manager. Put that in there. How many computers do you have? So we'll put that there. And then there. Let's do this. Save layout to file. And then I'm going to put this somewhere. I can easily get it. That'll do. And then what was the other thing I needed? Load the Mona spaces. So load Mona space or load space scenes. Right mouse click, remove scene. Scene. Ta-da. Now what I will usually do is unpack the following so I don't continually get warnings for prefab editing. And I will usually get rid of this one as well. So that's pretty much it for the scene. I'll usually put this up the top, just under space. That way all my stuff is under that, and then that never gets touched. Then I can move it wherever I want. And the directional light I'll usually keep, but I will turn it down. So this light is basically the light for the shadow of the player and any dynamic objects, I guess. But that's pretty much it. I will always limit lights or real-time lights to 1, maybe 2 if I have a good enough reason, and it has to be a really good enough reason. That will keep the processing down and the load light when you're working with web stuff. So what else do we need? We need a space. Oh, let's do the I should have done the Christmas template. No, I've already done that one. So let's do something else. So let's do a new Blender. Any requests for things to make? Let's make a very simple environment. There we go. With some walls. I'll put this on. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. That. Always forget that. So that allows you to see through things when you are selecting things. Hey, Stephen Lovecraft. How's it going? Just remembering all the keys for Blender. Duplicate X can go there. Grab duplicate, rotate Z. That's not what we want. That one. Yeah. Like that. No. Okay. What do we want? When do we want it? We are building lighting things, so things to light up. So I think for this, we'll actually just save this out as is. So export FBX. A little deeper than I'd like. Now, folder structures are super useful. Folder, models, base room. Always put one because you will have 20 million versions. Okay. So let's put that in. Ta-da, done. Now I could use these spheres, but I find that they're very poly heavy. So usually I will like to make sort of small ones. So like that, and then put a smooth shader on it, like so. But maybe a little bit more. So let's do that again. The one thing I don't like about Blender is you can't, once you unclick something, the object can't be edited anymore, basically. So for example, here, I want 3. Yeah, that's good. So 3 subdivisions, but as soon as you do that, you can't really edit that anymore. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. So I've got that. Let's have a look at the UV on that. Yeah, kind of interesting. We'll do today. And shade smooth. Now, one technique I'd like to do, for example, is if we have that and we can just make one object, but let's do something a bit more interesting, for example. So let's grab half of this and add a new material. So glow 1, and let's make that blue so we can see. And then we want new one, glow dot 2. Now, of course, I will usually do colors and stuff, but if you sort of, depending on your naming system and what you think you want, we can do that. I'll have to look into that. I haven't actually played with that one. The other technique I'd like to look at is, let's do material glow. That. There we go. So for example, in this one, I'm going to sort of make a texture really quick and very small to split it. And then we can make that as the texture. And then it's only sort of one material, even though it's got 2 different colors or glows or whatever we want. So yeah. Yeah, I'll have to look into that non-destructive way, because that's always much better. But for the most part, for some reason, everything that I want to make basically comes from like subdivision modeling. So what would you call it? What do you call it? I make a cube and then build everything outside of that. I come from the old days where that was the only way to do anything. Okay, so let's, because of that thing, and then done. Now let's make it better. So blue, pink. Big fan of those colors. Don't know why. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be useful. The more you know. The cool name is like Jewel Glow. Okay, so that's going to split down there. Now, of course, this is not using the space well, but we're not doing a UV tutorial. We're doing a so let's just copy all three. FBX, not export. Export, export. Because I'm cool, and Z makes it cool. Yeah, let's just put it there. Too easy. So with these materials, for example, there's is there a better way? It says FBX. You don't want to use a blender. Yeah, I just use FBX. Always have. With Blender, from what I know, FBX is the preferred tool in Unity, for example. I'm sure its handles it fine, but I've always used FBX because that's the standard. That said, if there is any benefits to a .blend file and it's not slower in any way, then that could work. Fair enough. I think my only thought was, yeah, I have read that FBX is preferred, and therefore I assume that it's faster. But I could very much be wrong there. Waroop. All right, so we had glow. Let's do pink. Let's do blue. And let's do jewel. Now let's ramp that up to 2. Now, I don't know why, but I like to mix the colors a little bit. Just adds a little bit of variation in there. Sure. And this one, we need our texture. Yep, nope. I need to turn it on first. There we go. Glow. Now, of course, if I really wanted to, I can do that. But say, for example, we could turn that down if we wanted to. Just to get that bit of variation in there, but not needed. Doesn't make much of a difference. I just like it. Okay. So, blue. Oh, no, that's, yeah, okay, that's why. So, pink, and then blue, and then jewel goes here. So you can see it there. So with that, for example, I could have gone here, gone to materials, and then applied them here. So sometimes I will use that instead. If I'm going with many objects, for example. So glow 1, glow 2, and jewel, for example, and then apply that. And then that would work. Or I can drag and drop, but if you drag and drop, then that only applies to that one particular model. So if you want them to all update, use that, and it's better and cleaner and it's in there. But then you've got the drag and drop if you want to have a little bit more control like that. All right. So next up, all of these objects, and by all I mean 2, has to be set to static. So I could do it individually, or I could just do this. So set to static and then change to children. And then as you can see, static and static. After that, we basically need to, we also need to go here and here and make sure that the model has generate Light Map Uvs. Super important, otherwise things go a little bit weird. So there's that. Now you could do this in Blender on a second UV channel. I find that more messy because when you're having a whole scene of different objects from maybe different sources, so you're using some from Blender or using some different assets, you'll like getting those secondary assets or third assets into Blender and then light mapping to fit correctly is a bit of a mess. And yeah, there's that. The problem with that is Unity Lightmapper is not the best at packing light maps. Bakery, however, which I do recommend, and I think is on sale now, does it a lot better. So because I use Bakery, I definitely do light mapping and packing in Unity. Much less hassle, which is and faster. So when it comes to like making spaces fast, that is the way to go, I think, anyway. All right, so set to static. They have been set to generate, and then we can look at some settings. So go to lighting, scene. Oh, we also need some lights. We don't have any lights, although we have these emissive, so we don't really need it. But let's do some interesting ones anyway. So I use this technique to create lights because then it goes somewhere that I like. If I use this, it'll go at the bottom section and it's not nearly as clean. So I like putting things where they need to go. So let's do a point light. And let's put it, where do we want to put it? Let's change the color. What's the another color that's useful in these colors? I like purple. Purple works. Let's do, no, it turns good. I do want to go more. There. Real purple. There we go. So that's a point light. There is always light. Except in the darkest of days. And then I can, if I want to, change it here if I wanted to. So I could do a spotlight. So I don't even need to. Yeah. I do this. I get it. A friend of mine gives me trouble for this every single time because he always uses the other form, the perspective. But I like this one. Call me crazy. Okay, what color can we do that one? Green. Now that one's a little bit crazier. Oh, we didn't set this one to baked. Very important. I usually leave all these things. You can do interesting things here, but so for example, draw a thing at the end of the spotlight, for example. Yeah, for sure. So if I have a point light and then I want to change it, tweak it a little bit, I can do that. But make sure, well, not make sure, remember really well the different light types. So for example, I'll change the name, make that baked. Let's go, yeah, crazy. Now the thing is, the shadow is a little bit, makes it a bit tricky to see it. So let's do that. Go. Cool. What else do we want? Let's go nuts. Because that's the thing with baking lights, you can go crazy. Spotlight, point light. Do we want another direction light? Sure. For ambient light, for example. Let's do that. There it is down there. Going that way. We do not want that. Holding down control will snap angles, which is great. Put it that way. Now, once again, when you move directions, it doesn't do anything because it's just all that direction. So there's that. Do we want to make this cool? How do we want to make this cool? Green, got red. How about orange? How about actual orange? Yeah. Sure. This one's going to be baked. This one's going to be subtle. Yeah. Actually, how's this one? 0.5? I want a subtle shadow for the character. So let's do that. We actually have, and I should use this for scale. Avatar, full scale. Yeah, he'll be big enough to run around. Okay, cool. And of course, the other one is area lights. Now, this one is only baked. You can do different shapes if you want. And the direction of it is based on where's the line? It usually has the line. Gizmos. Nope, can't even see it then. Okay, there it is. Does the disc not have one? Huh. Interesting. Okay, so this one's really faint, for example, but it's very fuzzy and blurry, so it's actually quite a nice, soft area light, I guess you could say. So for the sake of argument, let's go there. Go a bit interesting on size. This is going to be a mess of light. It's going to be hilarious. Let's put it down like that so we can definitely see. And we need a color. Any takers for choosing the color? Red. Great. Okay. Now, of course, this is not a quality space. I expect great things from all of you. But this is definitely how you do light mapping. All right, so let's do a quick bake on this. Now, let's make sure that one's real time, that one's baked, that one's baked, that one's baked, and that one is by default baked. Now, settings. I have a pretty good computer, but I will still turn these down at least to half. At least to start. Progressive GPU is faster, but I want to use this one because I can. GPU is alright, but yeah, definitely doesn't look as good as a CPU. Light map resolution, I'll start at 20 and then go up after that. Always punch this up to 2048. This has to go to non-directional. And yeah, sometimes I'll pump this up, but for now I'll just leave it as is. And there we go. Let's see what cacophony of beauty this will create. Going in the chat, because as I said, baking makes my voice go weird. There we go. Beautiful. Now, the quality is very low, but the main reason for that is because, one, the packing isn't great, but also the packing is very small, for example. So we can definitely ramp that up. So what I might do is do one padding, and let's go to 40. Yeah, when you do something in a really simple scene, you can ramp this up quite a lot. So let's double that and then see how that goes. Much better, much faster. So the first time you'll do it will be unpacking, and that'll take a while depending on what the settings are. But as you can see, this is already getting much better. And to be honest, we're still using this. So let's go. Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Now we're talking. Import light maps from where? And are you talking about importing UV maps or importing light maps that you've baked from elsewhere? Because that is a very big question. I think that's mostly about depending on where you're importing from. Yeah. And I haven't done that. I've always used Unity's light mapping, purely because I always put my scenes together in Unity. So when I'm baking, I want to put all of them into like separate light maps that put it all together in one. And to do that, you have to basically use Unity. I'm sure you can do it, but yeah, that's my approach because Unity kind of does the job all right, especially if you have the baked light maps. Because yeah, this is still one, for example. And then when I found Bakery, that was done for me. I'll never think about doing Blender UV maps anywhere else. I think. Yes, I can definitely do that. If you like, I'll probably let's wrap up this one, and then I can do that on top of this, and we can compare some notes. Oh, that's an idea. Let's do that. Yeah, excited. That's an excellent idea. Great one brain. So yeah, so as you can see, even just notching up the light map resolution to 80 is very high. Now, of course, if your scene is very complicated and larger, this would not be 80. Like my challenge, the first bounty, I think it was like, what did I have it? 20.3. So I was going up by decimal points to cram as much into that like channel as possible. So I was like using this corner of the channel. So I was like 0.3. Did I go to the second decimal? I forget. It was like 0.3 and render 0.4, render 0.5. Nope, that's gone over. So yeah, I was crunching it. It was quite fun though. Okay, so I think for the sake of such a simple scene, we can kind of do whatever we want. It's 2 minimum. That's interesting. Yeah. Good to know. Did not know that. Okay. So yeah, let's just do 150. And then we'll get God rays from the heavens on how beautiful the lighting is. Yeah. Beautiful. Now the thing is also, because this scene has no textures on top of it, um, the light mapping is really obvious. So you can sort of see the artifacting there because that is stretched over such a large size. But yeah, when you get complicated scenes, it's much better. But as you can see, we have 3, and yeah, there's still a lot of space and stuff like that. So play as you see fit. Fractilians, how are you? Welcome to the chat on Twitch, I believe you are. I can see everything. Yes, especially that last cheers. Especially that last bake. So where is it? Here. So say for example, like this will get filled, although once again, not so much Unity. But down by the third one, you would want this to be as packed as possible. So keep pushing that texels up until it starts a new thing, and then you're good. So then you're making the best use of the space that you possibly can. Okay. So what do we have? All right, so that's that. Let's add some reflection probes because they are my favorite thing. So once again, I'll do these sort of things up here. So put them in. Actually, I usually, it depends on how many probes I'm going to put in, but I'll usually put all my probes, reflection and light, in the one under probes. So let's do reflection probes. What do we want to do it? No, that's not what we want. We want to go here, and we got that. So we want the center of this to be, I don't know if you have to or it's the best point, but I put it about eye height of the avatar, because that's where you're going to be seeing everything from. Note that the center, actually this, like if I do that, for example, so that's the center of the reflection, I can't go lower than that, which makes sense. So if you're wondering why your reflection probe's acting a bit weird, that would be why. So let's go height. We want to put these around. So when your character is running inside this reflection map, that is the reflection map it will see. So if we do this, we'll have sort of in the middle, but I want to sort of have 2 so we can see this side reflection. And then when we're on the other side, we can see this side reflection. The amount of reflection maps is kind of up to you, but each one will take the resolution that you set. So you can have very, very small ones or very, very high ones. So I'm going to, okay. And as an example of that, I'm going to do some really cool things with that. So let's build that over here. So we have 2. What happens when they overlap, and this is actually really cool for Blender to do, no, not Blender, where am I? Unity, is as so for example, at this point, this reflection probe will be 100%, but then it will go to 100% of this one over the course of this distance. So the blending does actually happen over distance. So let's see if we can actually make that really obvious by doing this. Yes. I'll use my usual Japanese approach and just agree to pretty much anything. Like, yeah. So. Ho. Hi. Hang on. My other approach to everything in Japan is Google Translate. Text language. It doesn't like that. Yes, that is what I'm doing. No, I can't do that for everything in the chat. I would love to, but no. Looking here at Matt with tips to improve the lights. Ah, so. Watashi no name wa desu ka? Demo wakarahen. All right, what am I doing? Getting distracted. Okay. So let's do two things. Let's do this one as really low. 32. You probably know more Japanese than I do. And let's do this one really high. I very rarely use 2048, even with like very clear materials. So let's do some reflection materials just to prove that point. Chrome. We need. Okay, let's. Yeah, I'll just add some. I'm gonna cheat. Spheres are great for reflective things. I'm gonna use that. We only need 2, so. Oh no, let's do shiny and chrome. So we're going to put smoothness up to 1 and metal up to 1. So we have a perfect chrome here. Put that on that. Now, because there's no reflection maps to do, it'll be black. And then let's just do the technical term, fuzzy. Let's leave it at 1 and then put that at, let's say, 5. So notice how the reflection here is much fuzzier. Now this, for example, could have a much lower quality reflection map. So let's do that. Just to be cool, let's set those to static. All right. So with our reflection probes, we can make them here. So note 32 and 1024. Bake. So 32, as you can see, it's pretty there. And 1024, which takes a bit longer, which is beautiful. Why is that cut off? That's a bit weird. Why is that one fine? Ah. And that's why. Makes sense. That one again. Candyland. My next space. Dropping next month. I like candy. Okay, so as you can see, the quality here is much better. Now, just for argument's sake, let's do 24. Because the difference isn't different. So yeah, so you're looking at what? 4 times the resolution on the texture, which is quite large, but the quality is not even worth it. So be very careful with 2048. But even 512, for example, like, it's fine. They're all alive and you have to eat them. Ah, what was that movie? One of my favorites. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Hey Jamie. Yeah, so look, if you can see that 512 is a perfectly reasonable resolution, and when we run around, we can look at that and see. But over here, it's much lower, so you're kind of wasted. So over here, on a, what is it, 16? 32. So on a 32 polygon reflection probe, not great. Okay, so that's reflection probes, basically, 32, 512. And yeah, I'm just watching a workshop too. Whoever's doing it is like really interesting, I think. All right. So probe's done. Now, because we've added these, I'm going to have to rebake the lighting. So that's all set up, and let's do generate lighting. Okay, so now it's because it's baked everything, we can see examples of our fantastic reflection probe quality. Looks so bad. And then our fantastic light probe quality. And once again, the low quality and the high quality. So for these sort of materials, the reflection probe can be very low. But for high quality, they have to be much higher. But be very careful with these. They are very expensive just in file size. So use at your own risk. And yeah, so there's that. Once again, if you have the space, you on your file size, for example, like once again on my challenge, I was looking at every single reflection probe and downgrading it or upgrading it depending on how important it was. So some of the main space areas I was punching up to 1024, and the ones outside in the pond I turned down to like 128 because it was all plants and stuff. So you can really choose to optimize your space a lot with reflection probe resolution, for example. So use that to your advantage. Next up, let's do light probes. It does. But I think it's one of those things where reflection probes can be overused. So if you put it on everything, it kind of looks good, but it kind of doesn't look good, if you know what I mean. Because you don't want to put reflection probes on everything at full resolution, because then it just looks like, yeah, a bit too much, a bit fake, a bit gimmicky. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it's very much like that, and it's definitely getting to that point now, I think, where a lot of like the difference between a good creator and I like the fact that there's a reflection probe right behind me. Yeah, my stage is fantastic. It's very suitable to this environment. So you want to design the space to be good and accurate to the style and vision that you have, rather than trying to show off the technology. We have the technology, we've had it for ages in full games, sure. So Cyberpunk, yeah, we can do everything. We've got real-time lights, we've got reflections, we've got all that sort of stuff. So we can do that. So we don't need to show off anymore. It's not cool because it's not new. So use them well. Don't use them always. And I think honestly, if you use this sort of thing, especially with a texture. So for example, let's do I have any textures I can throw on this actually? I don't know. Give me a sec, actually. Give me a sec. Put this over here. Where's the millions of textures that I have access to? Garage? Nope. Nope. That's annoying. Okay, and just trying to really find a really good what would you call it? Noise texture, I guess. So we can have a look at what it looks like with different levels of. I think I've got aged and stressed. That'll do. Bump high concrete. Oh, metal. That'll do. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, and we want to do this on the chrome. For example, that. And we also want to put that on the fuzzy. For example, so this is where the quality comes in, because you can get very simple, cool effects with that. Now, notice with this, for example, if you roll over these, it'll sort of give you an example of what you're looking at. So the diffuse is RGB and transparency is A on a texture. Metallic, and I'm not a fan of Unity doing it this way, metallic is on the red channel and smoothness is on the alpha channel, and I hate that. But it's the way they do it. So yeah, I usually have very high metallic or very low metallic. I very rarely use things in the middle, but that's just me. And then yeah, so you have this smoothness. Yeah, it's it's Unity being Unity. So yeah, there's that. But that's where you get the quality experience, is in the texture use, but also the smart texture use, because these things are big and add a lot to the file size. So if you want to tweak that, for example, click on the texture, put that down to 256, for example, and apply. And you'll notice it doesn't really change that much. So once again, all of these optimizations where you'll pump it up or down, so you do get it better. But say, for example, if I went to 2048, that's a 1024 anyway, so that goes to a maximum of that. But say, for example, if we go 512, the difference is very small, but you've made a quarter of the file size, which is kind of big when you're looking at lots of textures. So once again, another optimization there. Let's get back into the point of the argument. So let's add some light probes. So light probes are more for dynamic objects, for example, and especially the avatar. So light probe group, we've got this. It'll put it at 0, 0, 0. The middle of it doesn't really matter. If anything, I'll just keep it there. It's the light probes that matter. So I'm going to put them up there and then down here. So basically, if my avatar is in the middle of these probes, for example, so 1, 2, 3, sort of these three, or the average of these three baked light, will cover that character, for example. And if it runs out, then it just all disappears. So usually what I'll do is I'll actually get rid of that. And I'll just focus on the bottom layer. Now you want them on near walls, because if I did this, the lighting out here would affect the lighting in here. So usually I will always put these in the walls, or next to the walls. And then say, for example, if I had, so Control D, I would put another set out here, for example, because yeah, you don't want the lighting from out here to affect the lighting in here. Now there is the between space, so it depends on how accurate you want to be. Like if you really wanted to, I guess you could do that. But usually I find you don't have to. I'm not that crazy about it. Well, let's just keep this out here, just as an example. So once again, duplicate. So if this was multiple rooms, we'll have a look at that. But we don't need this many, so I can probably just get rid of that and that. So you've got there. And then you can just continue that space there. Now, depending on how complicated your lighting is, I don't know. So in here it's quite complicated, I guess you could say. But so once again, just control duplicate, and get rid of that one and that one and that one. That there. Now, of course, in this space that has nothing outside the walls, these are useless because you'll never get there. But imagine, with the power of imagination, I would like you to believe that there is a room on the other side. Like so. So basically we have this. Now this doesn't work yet because you need sort of 3D space to do it. Standard, the standard is PBO. Like the metallic, well, the metallic roughness and all that sort of stuff. That just means the tools you use. So anything that with, basically anything with metallic is PBO. But Unity does it stupid, basically. So usually it's metallic and roughness. The only difference is with Unity, it's metallic and smoothness, but the result is the same. So you just invert the smoothness, and then you've got the roughness. And I hate it. I hate it so much. All right. So that's light probes, basically. But yeah, maybe they have a shader. They have an opposite shader. What is it? Hang on. So you got standard, and then you got standard specular, which is the old version. So standard is, to my knowledge, the equivalent of Unity's physics-based rendering setup. But yeah, they decided to be American and do everything different. Why can't everything be standard? Just everything standard. Do it. It's easy. The world would be a better place. We'd all be living together, cats and dogs living together happily. Is that too much to ask for? All right. So Jamie, is that sort of the light probe you're looking at? Now, if for example, so this is quite reasonable. You could maybe even push a few more, but say for example, if you were in this world, which has like one big area of lighting, then you don't need nearly as many, for example. So I would probably even go so far as to do that, for example, if you had like one main area of light, and then when all the light changes, you like an enclosed space and stuff like that, you do that sort of thing. So just like anything, use it when you need to. Could probably even go like that, for example, if it was a really open space. Now the Unity docs are actually pretty good on this. It has a really good example of like two buildings and the corridor and the roads and stuff like that. So for more info, I'd recommend just checking out Unity. They go into everything more depth than we ever will because we don't need to go into this that much depth, but they have some good tools with docs. All right. So let's bake everything again. So what do we got? So that's pretty big. Let's see if we can do a real example of crunching this. Okay, to the chat. How high should I make this and keep it under 3 light maps? Yeah, just yeah, metallic roughness. That's it. Done. Play nice with everybody else. 256. All right. You're the first bet. Is a good number. I'll give you that. All right. Cool. Let's go. Another thing that's very useful. Sometimes you might want to get rid of your baked information. So say I just want to get rid of this, or it's playing weird and it's not updating and stuff. I can use this button here and go clear baked data, and then it's all gone. So 180 times 2 is 256. I think your math is a little bit off. Hang on, what? Although that said, like, my math is terrible. Anyway, let's do the math in our heads while I generate. So yeah, so that's how you can get rid of the baked data in this if you wanted to. So. Now I've gone the 1 hour, but I'm happy. I'm happy to. Uh, ooh. All right. I think you're a little bit off. um, that's pretty funny. Yeah. Why Unity? That's okay. Doesn't like the spheres so much. That's weird. Okay, let's let's go back to what was it at 150. Let's go 200. Second guess. Who wants it? Yeah, I did one. What was it? I did one. I think I forgot. I forgot to put the generate UVs, and I imported like some assets or something. And it was like 256 or something. It was just like this long scroll down of yeah. It was forever. I had to go forever. So yeah, generate UVs, people. Highly recommended. All right, let's do 192. Ooh, so close. That'll do though. Now, we need, if we're going to do a quick test, we need some colliders. Now, I have noticed that a lot of people are using the mesh collider in their space. I do not recommend this unless you really need it. So, for example, with this space, I would actually do everything manually with box colliders and sphere colliders. The only reason I would use a mesh collider is for something like stairs, where I would model the stairs and then I would model a ramp that aligns with the stairs and then use the ramp model as the mesh collider that is much lower quality than the stairs, for example. So I would highly recommend getting into the habit of using better systems for collision, because collision takes a lot of processing as well. And basically anything that gets processing down is what you want to do. So I've got a B from Bakery, but I want to do a box collider. And then just add boxes. There may be a better way to do it, but this is how I do it for the most part. And this is very low end optimized colliders. So for example, with that one, I'll copy component, I'll paste as new. And build up the space that way. Unfortunately, we can't rename these because that would make things so much easier. But alas. But say, for example, what I could do is I could do, say, walls, duplicate that, get rid of this one, and then rotate that. Done. Room made. Yeah, for sure. But even then, I would like create. So if you had a sphere, for example, I would basically make a very low polygon polyhedron sort of thing. So you have, if you have a, let's say, a 64 polygon sphere, which is still pretty low, but yeah, I would get that down to 12, for example. Like I don't think collision has to be as accurate as we think it is, especially when the capsule on the avatar is not that accurate either. So I think performance is definitely more important for collision than other. So there's that. What else is there? That's the space. Let's do some quick spheres. So for that one, we need a sphere collider. Just as an example, for example. One. Yeah, that'd be right. 0.9. No, one's good. Ah, there's that. Do part of the mesh that needs them. Yeah. And you can fake a lot. So if you had this sort of like tree, for example, that was going around like that, if you just put a box at the top of it, the avatar will never get under it. So you don't really have to worry about that sort of thing. Random example, but yeah. So yeah, you can really cut down on the collisions. pretty easily. Just as long as it kind of fakes, like most game engines, especially nowadays, maybe less as much. But I think originally, like game engines were just how can you fake everything? No, that's the only problem with this one. Sometimes you don't know which one you're grabbing. Yeah, like I was there for the original. Well, I was there from the original everything. It's like Famicom. I'm old, so I've had to learn every single method of every single system since the beginning of time when we didn't have like bones that we could mesh, like manipulate meshes. So you had to make every body part a separate object and stuff like that. So yeah, we've come a long way since everything. All right. Have we got everything? So we've got baked lights, we have reflections, we have colliders, we have a spawn point that is in the middle of a collider. Not the best idea. I'm going to make sure it's facing the way I want it to. So the blue, if I recall, blue is the facing direction with pivot and local set. So that, for example, is not where it would look. That is where it would look. I've got that. Usually I'll raise it a little bit just so you can drop. And yeah, good to go. Let's give that a shot, shall we? Fingers crossed. All right. Playground files. Let's 18 meg. Doing all right. I think we're okay. We've got some room to move. Where's my... Ah, here we go. Hopefully this works and I haven't forgotten something. It's just emptiness and I die. There we go. There's our little avatar. So as you can see, our avatar has the reflection in there. And he's facing that way. Ah. There we go. So yeah, if you look really close, oh, I wish I had zoom. I want scroll zoom. So you can look at that and you can see it's pretty glitchy on that side. But if we go over here, very clean and very, very nice. Now, because I put the texture, like all of the orbs are the same. So that's not great. So yeah. Marble Land. This is now officially Marble Land. So we have our lights. We have our shadow, for example, with the one real-time light. It's very subtle. And I find that if the shadow is really subtle, you don't see the jagged edges so much on the character. So once again, it's one of those things that kind of looks better because it's subtle. So back in the day, you would sort of set it really high because we've got real-time shadows. That's great. But if you make it subtle, it's not. It's better. You buy into the world a bit more. Except for this guy, he's not a good example. And notice how the light probes are changing the color of the character. So we're pink over here, and now we're blue over here, a bit purple. So the light probes are what's doing that, for example. And yeah, so light probes are super important for sort of embedding the avatar into the space. If I didn't have the light probes, the lighting on the character would just be the real-time light. So yeah, and the real-time light is like a simple, slightly yellow color. But when you add light probes, yeah, your avatars are in the space properly, for example. So yeah, can we make it over? No, This is a fully enclosed space. Oh no, hang on. Haha. I'm free. Oh. Yeah, there's now a limit to how far you can fall. Thank you, Alv, for saving me. So yeah, that is light maps. That is reflection probes. That is light probes. Any other questions with this? Otherwise, we can jump into bakery. Ta-da! And the other thing I really like, big fan of this, is the reflection probes on the visor. Always looks cool. That's the other thing. So if you watch, you can't really tell, but say for example, it'll transition to the other reflection probe as you move across. Well, how far? I think it's 60. Like it's 60 units down. Still a work in progress. So talk to the team if you have something specific. But yeah, I think more spaces require a limit falling because so many people could fall out of the spaces. So it's more a safety measure. All right, so that's that. That's not bad for like 18 meg. Yeah. The 0.1% of people doing cool falling effects versus the 0.99% of people who can figure out how to get through somebody's spaces and fall out. Yeah, I'll take the 99% on that one, I think. All right, what do we got? So, what do we need? We need to install Bakery. And this is why we got the package manager. So, let's look at all the assets that I'll never use that I've bought on sale because Unity is dangerous. So usually if you've not installed Bakery before, this will be download. So for example, you've got download here. So you would click on download and then it'll download it. Some things, if I have a good example here, there was one that was like update. So if the asset is updated since last, here we go, good. So for example, Amplify has been updated since I last downloaded it, so I could update that and then import it, or I could leave it as the current. So I'm going to download it, click, download, 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 and then import. Yes, light probes, like it makes a huge difference, especially with the avatar. Like the avatar light probes are hyper important. And another thing with light probes, if the object is so small that the light map doesn't look good, and you don't want to scale that up. Actually, I'll need to add that, so I'll do that next actually. And you don't want to scale it up in the light map. Make it off static and let the light probes affect that object, for example. So does it cut off when I talk, or is this okay? I need to figure out what's janky and what's not with the recording. Put your hand up in the air if my voice is all everywhere. That's a tune. Just waiting that. Yeah. One day we should have a karaoke session in one of the spaces. I'll make a karaoke room. I'm good at karaoke. I am the king of karaoke. I've got all Disney down. Yeah, I'm thinking that's might be the thing. Baking lights might be the really big one. And yeah. Okay. So back on that point, I was talking about. So for example, where is it? Yeah. So not that song. That one's hard. Like that's really hard. That said, I can do what is it? I can do Aladdin and Love Shack, both male and female parts. So see if you can beat that. I've actually written. Who's seen? Actually, this is a good one. Who's seen Bo Burnham's Inside? And do you know Welcome to the Internet? If you're not, go check it out. It's amazing. But I've rewritten that song to Welcome to D&D. Um, and I'm actually making it. I'm actually got a whole animation that I want to do with one of the Critical Role characters that I created. Anyway, off the off the point. So if you click on an object in the space, not in the project, so we've got these, and notice how you do have scale factor, but that will do weird things. So what you want is here, where you'll have scale in Lightmap, for example. So if I'm not too sure about the ratio, but if I did 2, for example, this would double the size of it currently in the light map. Not too sure of the ratio, but something along those lines. So if I make an object that I want to be really good, like let's call them hero objects, then I might bump up this in the light map so the quality of it is really, really high. But if, for example, this was really small, so in the light map is, regardless of how big it is, it's not really going to make that much of a difference, then I would turn this off, for example, rebake so it's not there, and let the light probe do the lighting kind of on that, for example. So artifacts, for example, which you should not bake because people can turn them off. So the shadow that is underneath it will stay there forever, which is not ideal. Light artifacts, for example, would use light probes to be embedded in the scene better, for example. So things like that. So scaling night map if for hero objects, or you want to sort of bump a small thing up, but ideally you'd probably want to turn it off completely and just save those polygons for things that matter. So there's that. Okay. What 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 am I doing? Bakery. So bakery, whole menu up here. So we have some lights that we can work with, for example. So now that I have installed bakery, I can create lights here, but these lights will not be displayed in the scene unless you have like the bakery previewer, which is another asset you could buy. But I think it's still kind of previewy, so it doesn't work as well as I'd like. I mean, I haven't really played with it that much, but there's that. So you could use these. The only one I use this one for is Spotlight, because I use that as a guide on actual spotlights, because spotlights are a bit weird in bakery. So let's go through all of these lights with thing. So this is baked. I will add a component. I will press B. Now this is a directional light, so I will do bakery direct light. And then you'll have this script down here. Now this is bakery, basically. Now I've got my settings, and I want them to be applied to the bakery settings. So I can do match light mapped. The naming isn't good. The light mapped is the script, and the real time is this. But it's baked, so the name isn't great. So I wish they had, so match bakery to light, for example, or something like that. But if I click this, everything will match with this. So I can see the results, and I will do this. But if I change this, for example, so let's say that's to 0.5, this is not changed, and bakery doesn't make it wouldn't make any difference to the scene. So basically you have to bounce between these two quite a lot if you want to visualize it. It's a little annoying, but it does the job, if you will. Now that's a bit too high. Now if I wanted to, I could do that, and that would be bakery, and this just doesn't get counted as all, but then I'm not seeing the results here. So in this case, I've changed this, but not this, but I want this to be the one, so match real time to that. So that's the direct light, and that's basically what I use most of the time. But I could turn that off, for example. This doesn't matter, because this is not used. I still use this, but I do not use this. What we use is this. So render light map creates a new window. I'll put this over here usually, because that's the one I usually use. And these are the new settings. So instead of this, I will use this. But let's get to that in a second. I'd like to set up the rest of my lights. So this is a point light. Point light, add bakery, add point light. Match light map to real time. Done. We have a spotlight. Now, once again, there is no spotlight. But I will show you what I do to make sure I use a spotlight correctly. So I will create a spotlight. So as you can see, you can't see the results, and that's a little bit annoying, but that's the way it works. So bakery point light, color, intensity, shadow spread, bakery, because they would have to buy bakery. which is surprising. They just bought wetter, so they could 100% buy bakery. Yeah, I don't. That is a whole conversation. I would be love to have a, what would you call it? Maybe not a Mona workshop, but a rant workshop where we just rant about the decisions Unity have made over the last couple of generations. Okay, so the main thing for a spotlight here is basically projection mask, which is cookie, and then cookie texture, for example. So as you can see, bakery, the folder, has its own little example for a spotlight. Where did I put it? It's down the bottom because I added it like that. So it has cookie and then an FT Unity spot texture, which is basically a small thing like that. Now that could be anything, for example, 128, it's pretty small. So that's basically what a spotlight is. So what I could do is get rid of that, get my spotlight, add a point light, add cookie, and then try and find, if I think it was FT Unity Spotlight, Unity Texture, Unity Spot Texture, that one. And then we have a spotlight. And then we can just use match light mapped to that. So that's how you make a spotlight in Bakery. And then everything else is the same. So a bit weird for spotlights, but yeah. And of course, area lights. This is an example. These ones are very interesting, actually. So what this is basically a quad with a collider, which we don't need, with mesh renderer that has the bakery light, and it creates a material that is basically an emissive, a special emissive, main color, intensity. So for example, I will set the colors here. So let's go red. Let's go 3. No texture I don't want, cut off, all that sort of stuff. And then match light to material. And then that will do this to that. No, I did the wrong way around. So this is why match material to light, for example. And that's your area light. Now I would probably use that over this one. So I would get rid of that one and put in my new area light, for example. So area lights are a bit different. Now, if I recall, this was actually quite long. Now you have your area light. So those are most of the lights in Bakery. I'm going to get rid of that one. And yeah, so you can tweak this and then set it to the material. I have noted that if I have a different area light, it will use this material as for all of them. So if you change that material, it'll change all of them because there's only one to work with. So I would rename this one. So once again, right mouse click, select material, and then change that to 01. And then I would maybe create a new one, area light, for example. And let's do this as blue to make it very different. Match mesh areas to light maps, match lights to... What's going on there? So I have had that issue before. Bakery light, match lights, match mesh area lights to light mapped, which is what that is. Okay. So that's all one. How did I do it? So notice how this one changes. But because I've got to rename, put that on there. Do that to red. There you go. So yeah, that's how you get around that. It's a bit finicky, for sure, but a lot of the time I'll just use emissive of the colors and stuff for that. So that's a small note if you find that you're changing this color and all of your area lights change. Okay, so once again, everything's on static. We have our lights. So match material to light again. Yep, that's what we want. Directional light, baked, and bakery. So once again, this is baked and it will not be used. So I could even turn it off. Spotlight, light, baked, good. So this won't be used. This is going to be used. Point light, this is going to be used. This is not going to be used. Directional light, this is real time. That is continually going to be used. All right. Any questions so far? Yes, Bakery works for Mono. I used it in MySpace. Now I think the reason it works is because basically these baked light maps in Unity is what Bakery points to. Like that's all it does. So it's not actually doing anything different, but how you do it is different. So yeah, it's a bit messy, but worth it. Oh, let's take a screen grab. Let's do that. So let's grab that. It's not bad, to be honest. Let's... Oh, I've got Photoshop open. I'm a genius. Yeah, cool. All right. Now, settings for Bakery. What I use and have found good so far to time is I will go experimental. I will leave full lighting. Directional node will bake normal maps, so the normal maps will affect the baking, and that's really nice. These go higher. Check the documentation. I've read them. These ones are a bit tricky. I get the impression they aren't supported in... They might not be supported in Mono. I could be reading it wrong, though. So dominant direction, I read, is kind of better than baked normal maps, but it takes longer. So I just stick with baked normal maps. I haven't actually done time tests or anything. Usually I will go to Atlas Packer, and this is where the magic happens. So you've got that. Adjust UV padding, I leave. Unwrapper is Atlas. This will come up. X-Atlas may provide better UV unwrapping for models with generate mapping light map UVs, which I've already done if adjust UV map is enabled in Bakery, so which is already set. So this is about sharing scenes with other people. I don't share my scenes with other people, so I don't have to worry about this, but read this if you're worried about it. I will always go use XAtlas because XAtlas is amazing. But yeah, the main thing is they're sharing your folder with other people. So if you're working with a group in a team, that may be something you need to look into. Image denoiser will be Optic 5, and I'll get to that in a second. Now, because I've got XAtlas set, I can use hole filling. If I turn, nope, not this one. If I turn this one off, that goes away. Hole filling is great because it uses the light map space better. Or the second UV light map space better. So put that on. I don't know. I've used that. I don't use it very often. Doesn't really matter. Texels per unit as always. So let's put that up to 40. And we'll be able to push this higher simply because it uses the space better. So we could probably get that 256 in, actually. 2048 is my usual go-to. Bounces and samples, I'll leave. Emissive boost is interesting if you want to just turn everything up to 11. I did that in my space. It definitely goes up to 11, so be careful with that one. And this one is an easy one to miss, but I always put it on. Ambient Occlusion always looks really good. You can make it high, but I usually set it to 1. And I have an RTX mode. I have an RTX card, so I will put that on now. So that's my settings. Now the thing is, if I do this for the first time, it will actually come up with this. Now I don't need to because I've set the settings, but I like to do it anyway, even though I have set it. So would you like to automatically detect optimal settings for your hardware? Yes. It will take a moment. And then it will give me the settings that are good for me. So I have most of the things, and then it will give me my recommendation. I don't know why it says 5.1. I don't know if 7.1 is better. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't make a difference. I think I've done some tests. Set recommended as default. Do I have an RTX card? Yes, I do. And nothing is going to change because I already set it. So that's Bakery. Okay. Everything's done. Render. You will have to save your space every single time. So take note of that if you're doing some weird stuff with saving or making new versions, because you do have to save before you bake. Oh, isn't it so much better though? It's just great. I'm going to copy that. What? No. There we go. Let's try again. Like, I mean, I mean, so yeah. Hey man, how's it going? Yeah, just going through the bakery versus light Unity mapper, and I think bakery wins by a lot. Oh, and this is the other thing too. See, look how close, like so much closer. Like, look at that. It's great. So the result is better with less maps. And then, of course, if we wanted to, we could actually go much higher. What was it? Same thing. Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. So a 256. Can we get it under 3? Because what was the other one? 7, I think it was. Let's give that a shot. I'm interested. Ah, before I do. No, cancel. Okay. Oh no. Before I do, if you do render, the other thing with bakery is you have to render reflection probes after you render. This is something you have to manually do. With Unity Lightmapper, it will bake the reflection probes automatically. So note that some objects will turn black. If they turn black, that means they have certain reflection levels, and that means you haven't rendered the reflection probes yet. So let's try again. Okay. Look at it. It's perfect. There's no artifacts at all. But 4. That's it. Look at that. So, bakery, huh? um, yeah, I gotta take a screenshot of that one as well. That's pretty. That's crazy. Yeah, yeah. Like you can see the artifacting, for example, but you only add an extra. What was it, 2? And 2048 is pretty big, to be honest. But the quality difference is huge. That's nuts. But yeah, that's bakery. If you can make what? How many is like this? 3, 7, 7, 7? Yes, 7, 7 balls and 5 cubes look good. Imagine what you could do with actual modeling. So that's bakery, for example, which is pretty crazy. Sometimes you do lose your settings, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, once again, and you can't. I don't think you can save your settings, so you kind of have to go through the whole process again. But as you can see, when I went to experimental, it does keep. Well, kept that, but it didn't keep this. So knowing your settings is kind of useful on the fact that sometimes bakery will forget everything. And then when I render, it's not going to give that thing up again. So yeah, candy box, yum yum. Right. And then and then reflex probes, for example. So you've got those as well. So yeah, don't forget reflection probes because I forgot reflection probes and you shouldn't. Let's do that one again then. Now that they're in there. Why not? Oh, my scratch discs are full. How so? Yeah, fine. I'll fix that out. Fix it in post. Yeah, it goes on sale quite a lot, but then again, everything on Unity goes on sale quite a lot. They're kind of like the Steam store, where it's like you don't buy anything because tomorrow there's going to be a sale. Um, so there's yeah, reflection probes are very quick. Somehow I don't know why, but yes, reflection probes are indeed much quicker, so you don't have to worry about them so much. But the thing with that one also, I think the time that took was because it had to unpack everything again. Um, so that's probably the main slowdown. So if I changed some settings and then still made that 256, there's a very high chance that it would render a lot faster. I'm not going to risk it, but playing around with those settings is the way to go. What else is there? So reflection probes are done. Light probes are the same. I don't think light probes are even part of bakery. Like that just keeps that information updated always. So that's pretty. You don't have to worry about light probes once you put them in. And that's lighting in Unity and Unity Light Bakery. Yeah, that's the thing. I think yeah, bakery is getting a lot of business from us, which is great for him. Um, yeah, so that's that's been a very interesting sort of process. Um, But yeah, I bought it at full price. I am happy with that purchase. But half price is half price. You can't really do anything on that, I guess. All right. I'm gonna stick around for 5 more minutes. We'll do a full 2-hour session. Any quick questions before I wrap up? No questions? Anyone? Favorite colors? Or anything else I can think of? Okay. Let's do a quick optimization run. If you want to, what you can do is yeah. What you can do. I think that one. Yeah. Small note. If you import Bakery, Bakery will randomly put an area light in the scene. So I usually get rid of that one. So there's that. So say for example, I don't want these spheres to be, or let's say I want a new layer, because what I want to do is get this light to only work on some of the objects, for example. So I'm going to go to culling mask and do culling. So nothing is lit at the moment. So let's say I want the base room. Let's say I just want the base room, because that's where the shadow falls on the ground, and like you wouldn't really notice the shadows falling on objects. So I'm going to create a new layer and call this Shadow Me, because that's all I can think of at this point in time. And then I will go this directional light, and then I will say Shadow Me. And I think that's how it works. I always get these mixed up. Or it's the other way around. So everything, yeah, so that lights everything. I don't want anything. I just want Shadow Me. So the base room layer is Shadow Me. Yes, change children. So this now has light, but this does not, for example. So if I change this off, the spheres don't change color anymore, because the directional light is not applying to them, which saves processing. So that would be an example of how you could optimize your lights significantly, because the real-time lights are only affecting some of the objects in your scene. Therefore, you might be able to have other lights real-time that are affecting other limited amounts of the scene. So that would be one approach to that. It's a little bit finicky, making sure you get the right layer and the right name and the culling and all that sort of stuff. But that is an example of a direction you could dig if you really wanted to push dynamic lights for, once again, something that is worth real-time light. But it has to be really worth it, basically, is the way I think about it. I don't use real-time lights because most of the time I can't think of anything that's worth the cost of it. I'm sure I could if I tried, but that's an area I don't want to try, because I want to keep smaller, more manageable spaces that work on low-end systems, and potentially virtual reality, which is a whole new game if and when that gets added. And as much as they're making leaps on that sort of tech and software side, it still takes a lot of processing to render on a Quest 2, for example, because you're basically rendering on a phone, not a graphics card. So keep that in mind if you want a large audience for your space. If you just want to play on your computer and it works on your computer, do whatever you like. But if you're trying to sell it, then more the merrier, sort of thing. But yeah, 1:00 here on the dot, so that's going to work well. So yeah, that'll do for today. Hope you all had a great time. I'm hoping to have more of these workshops. I do enjoy them. And yeah, I'll probably take some requests in regards to either just keeping it open and anyone can come in and say, hey, how do you do this? or I'll keep them focused on one particular topic that day. So I'd like to do an animation one. I'd like to do a trim sheets one. Trim sheets are huge for optimizing a space. There's a long list of things that you can optimize spaces with Unity and that sort of stuff. So thanks for joining. I'm going to do the camera thing. Thanks for joining, and good luck with the Christmas challenge. I look forward to seeing your amazing light works of masterpieces. So yeah, let's go back. Ta-da! Yeah, have a good one and catch you around. Bye.